Alright guys, so I'm going to be starting off with the starting position and wedge of the sumo deadlift. The reason I'm doing that is because it is the most important part of the deadlift. So the first thing you're going to want to do when setting up for a sumo deadlift is to find your foot placement and toe angle. So I'm going to use this crudely drawn barbell to kind of represent where your feet should be. So with a wide stance sumo, you're going to want to point your toes towards the edge of the plate. It's just the most stable toe angle to have during a wide stance sumo. If you point them out too far, you're probably going to run into some balance issues. And if you point them inwards too much, then it might be hard to wedge, but I've seen some people pull it off. Now, it's important to note that if you have a more narrow sumo stance, then toe angle doesn't really matter as much. It just depends on what's more comfortable to you. You could point them outward super far or more straightforward like a conventional deadlift. It doesn't really matter. So once your feet are set, it's important to come down to the bar with a neutral spine, or as neutral as you can get it. You're trying to get down to a position where your hands are kind of hovering around the bar, so your hips should be set in like a higher position. And then what you're gonna do from here is get a little initial pull, and then what I like to call sit and anchor. So the easiest way to sort of visualize this is to think of the wedge as a two-part movement. So the first thing you're going to do is kind of take that initial pull. That's going to be your first step. And then the second part of the movement is going to be that sit and anchor. So I'm going to break down the wedge real quick just so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is that first initial pull. You're really going to want to keep your back neutral, and you're going to really want to brace a lot as well. This is going to create a lot of tension in the bar. So you should hear a clink in the bar, or if you're using really light weight, the bar might even hover off the ground. You also should be gripping the bar right about shoulder width, so you don't want to go too narrow or too wide. So the second portion of the movement is really where you're going to get super upright during the wedge. So this is a combination of external rotation of your hips, so pushing your knees outwards, while kind of falling back like a truss fall and pulling your chest up. So what I mean by truss fall is while you're pushing your knees out during external rotation and pulling your chest up, you're going to kind of fall back. And the only thing that's keeping you from falling on your butt is holding onto the bar. So that should keep you pretty upright. So once you're in that most optimal position, you're going to really think about spreading the floor or pushing the floor away when you're pulling the weight off the floor. So think about standing on like a big sheet of paper and trying to rip it from the middle, only using your feet. It's also very important to stay patient once you're in your starting position and once you get all that tension out of the bar. If you try to rush off the floor or lose positioning off the floor, it's going to cause you to have problems with lockout or just misgroove the lift in general. So this is just a different perspective of my wedge. I just want to let you guys know that I am exaggerating the sit and anchor and the wedge pretty dramatically, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Once you begin to get a little bit more comfortable with that two-part wedge, you can begin to make it more of like a fluid motion. And here's how it should kind of look. Obviously, every pole is going to be different based on different body mechanics and stuff, but at least here's how mine looks with some heavier weight. This is probably a more accurate representation of what my wedge would look like with heavier weight. Obviously, I can't get as upright with like 700 pounds. So Dan Grigsby is a really good example of how to execute this style of slack pull and wedge. As you can see, he's going to take that really big first initial pull, and then he's going to go ahead and immediately like sit back and sit and anchor and start pulling. Also notice how close he's getting his hips to the bar, which is allowing him to get a really good position. Here's another example of his starting position in slack pull. Again, look at that really good initial tension followed by that really good wedge and good follow through with the lockout. His deadlift is just extremely efficient, and it's really good to learn from. So the main thing you need to know about lockout is the better position you have off the floor with the deadlift, the better your lockout is going to be. So I'm going to use Yuri Belkin for an example. He's one of the best sumo pullers in the world. He has a really good starting position, which leads him to have a super fast and snappy lockout. One of the main things you need to take into account when locking out a sumo deadlift is knee lockout timing. For most people, the knee lockout point would be when the bar passes the top of the kneecap, so as it reaches like the lower quad area. Alright guys, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys learned something new or gained some new perspective or something that you could add to your own deadlift. You guys take care, have a good one.